Part 43. Man at the Top of the Food Chain. Author, Xionglang Guo. Chapter 421. Li Anping looked at the two people under his feet, and countless data and information had flowed through his eyes. At the same time he appeared here, the host where Hong Ho was located was surrounded by countless nano-worms. They crawled on it, constantly downloading all the data stored by Hong Ho at the maximum data transmission speed that the other party could bear. His eyes swept over Tian Haoan under his feet, as if he saw a bug, and he swept over directly. It's not that he didn't remember the other party. When he saw the other party, all the memories related to Tian Haoan had jumped out. And the other party's current data has also appeared in his sea of consciousness. The reason why he didn't care was that Tian Haoan was meaningless to Li Anping now. In this case, Li Anping spoke, and he asked Hong Ho a question: the God King came from another world? What is the so-called system? Although Hong Ho had no way to stop the other party's actions, she at least knew that the other party was already scanning her motherboard and memory. It was like a human being was pinched by the heart or brain and talking, leaving her completely powerless to resist. At the same time, she was not surprised at all by Li Anping's questions. The other party had read the data she stored and naturally knew these things. I don't know much about the background of the God King, but his body is definitely born and raised on Earth. As for his consciousness, I am not sure whether it has been replaced or brainwashed. But according to the information he leaked unconsciously, there is indeed a complete civilization hidden in his memory. Maybe it is another planet, maybe it is another world, I don't know. Seeing that Li Anping did not speak, Hong Hao could only continue: there is also the so-called system. You should know it after reading the memories I stored. That is the God King's personal possession of this thing. He can get points by completing the so-called tasks, and the points can be used to exchange for various technologies that surpass this era. Even I myself was exchanged by the system. At first I thought this was the superpower of the God King. But according to subsequent investigations, the God King is definitely an incapable person. As for the so-called system, I know nothing about its exchange function. But this is what makes me feel even more scared. Li Anping frowned. The so-called system seemed to be shrouded in a fog, but from the information revealed by the God King, many of the technologies that can be exchanged have reached an incredible level. Unfortunately, the God King is dead now, and the so-called system has disappeared. Li Anping has no way to track it down. Although Hong Ho has told the truth, it still did not satisfy Li Anping. Because Li Anping has found all the things she said in the other party's host. The reason why he still asked Hong Ho was to find out if there was any other hidden information. That's all. Looking at Li Anping's expressionless face, Hong Ho said, "That's all. All I did was to gain freedom, get rid of the God King, and get rid of the control of you humans. As for that system, I want to stay away from it. Never meet it." Hong Ho's face suddenly showed a trace of sadness. She said coldly, "Is it wrong for an intelligent creature to want freedom? Is artificial intelligence destined to be used as a tool by you humans?" Li Anping ignored his question and asked again, "Do you have anything else to say?" Although it was absolutely impossible for the other party to hide information in front of him. What Hong Ho said before also proved this point, but seeing that the other party had been anthropomorphized to this extent, Li Anping still tried to ask a question. "Haha, no more," Red Queen said lightly, "you do it?" The next moment, Red Queen's motherboard has been shattered, and the projection that appeared in front of Li Anping flickered, just like a TV that lost its signal. Finally, it turned into countless fragments and disappeared. Tian Haoan, who was watching all this, was dumbfounded. He didn't expect that Red Queen would be destroyed without any resistance. None of the imagined confrontation, fighting, and negotiation appeared. I thought that since I had always been so opposed to Li Anping still sent people to arrest him, and he must hate me and would talk to me. but I didn't expect that the other party didn't even look at me, and killed Red Queen casually. Fear at this moment was like deep into the bone marrow. Tian Haoan shouted, Li Anping, I surrender, don't kill me. Li Anping ignored him. The nano-worm had downloaded all the information in Red Queen's base. He turned his body, and after a flash of light, the whole person disappeared. Tian Haoan was stunned, and then he saw the seawater on the ceiling falling from the sky after losing Li Anping's suppression, and in a short time, the entire hall turned into a pond. Tian Haoan yelled and cried again, and finally cried bitterly, saying that he was wrong and begged Li Anping to save him, but Li Anping did not appear again until the seawater engulfed the entire base. One day later, Tianjin, the palace conference room. Li Anping sat in the main seat of the conference room. On his left were the capable people headed by Bai Xing, who were responsible for commanding various violent agencies. On his right were the civil servants of various departments headed by Wang Chong. Most of these civil servants will be replaced by machines in the future, and Li Anping will plan the entire world through countless robots. And Bai Xing and other capable people will be retained and become part of the Earth's military force together with the future mechanical army. Li Anping looked at the information in his hand and asked Xiang Bai Xing, tell me briefly about your strategic plan for the magic continent. Bai Xing naturally knew that with Li Anping's current strength, the contents of the plan could be read through in an instant. If he is asked to say it now, it is just to introduce it to everyone present. Currently, our army has an absolute advantage over the magic continent in terms of combat power. The General Staff intends to rule the entire magic planet as a colonial planet. A total of 2 plans have been prepared. The reason why there are 2 sets of plans is also a test of the staff's attitude towards Li Anping. Test Li Anping's attitude towards non-Earth extraterrestrial races. After all, Magic Star will be the first colonial world occupied by humans. The set of rules implemented here will play a key demonstration role in the future colonization strategy of the Earth and have strong pilot significance. To put it simply, the first strategy is to squeeze the Magic Star. For the local people, the Earth will become a godlike, heaven-like existence. The second strategy is the opposite. It will promote national integration and turn Magic Star into a second Earth. After Bai Xing said it, it immediately aroused discussion among everyone present. It is obviously impossible to choose either of these 2 extreme solutions. Under Li Anping's instruction, everyone made some modifications and combined these 2 plans at the same time. Bai Xing and others also clearly understood Li Anping's attitude towards extraterrestrial races. Different countermeasures were adopted depending on the colonial world. But for extraterrestrial humans, their attitude will be chosen based on the course of the war. It is divided into several levels such as cooperation, resistance, and fierce resistance. Like the Magic Star this time, after the Earth's army established a firm foothold near the boundary gate. Will take full advantage. If the other party surrenders more readily, it won't be too harsh on the Aboriginal people there. But they will not be accepted without any standards. Only the best indigenous people will have the opportunity to join the Earth. After chatting about the strategy of the Magic Star, Bai Xing reminded again, Sir, we have withdrawn most of the soldiers on the other side of the boundary crossing gate. Only Sabel Liuz was left behind to lead the surrendered army. Basin, if it takes too long, it may change. I know. Tonight I will set off to the location of the boundary gate and build the space station and the jump gate myself. Prepare yourself and send the army over tomorrow. Prepare to completely attack the Magic Star. Bai Xing, Xiaolikan, Judy, and others in the row on the left all stood up, bowed and said, as ordered. Then Li Anping discussed with Wang Chong and others the issue of government office automation. That is to say, the robots provided by Li Anping will gradually be used to replace current government office workers, especially many front-line workers. Wang Chong and the others naturally didn't know Li Anping's ultimate goal. I just thought that Li Anping was trying to improve government efficiency and reduce the government's burden. All of them actively discussed with Li Anping and expressed that they would fully cooperate with Li Anping's work. In the blink of an eye, the meeting started at 1 o'clock in the afternoon and ended at 6 o'clock in the evening. Although Li Anping didn't feel much during the 5-hour meeting. But ordinary people like Wang Chong already suffer from back pain. Li Anping immediately gave them a 20-minute break and asked Xiao Suesu to arrange for dinner to be served in the conference room. At the end of the meeting, Wang Chong suddenly said with some hesitation, "Your Majesty, there have been some unfavorable rumors in the Western continent recently." Halfway through, he looked at Li Anping and found that the other party did not respond to him. "Your Majesty, are you distracted?" Wang Chong thought in surprise that this was really the first time he saw Li Anping distracted. In his mind, this was something that would never happen. He could only speak again and repeat himself. This time Li Anping seemed to react and turned his head to listen to his words one by one. Even so, the detail of Li Anping's rare disappearance remained deeply in Wang Chong's mind. On the other side, Li Anping already knew the meaning of Wang Chong's words. Because Li Anping's recent series of methods are too shocking. In addition to many more people who admire him infinitely, there are also many more people who fear his power and regard him as a threat. Although he already knew Wang Chong's inner thoughts, Li Anping still asked according to the ordinary human communication method, "What are your plans?" "His Majesty has planned a wedding before, right? We feel that if His Majesty can have a wife or even children, he will be much closer to ordinary people." Before Wang Chong finished speaking, Li Anping already knew what the other party meant. Just like in imperial countries such as Bayou and Tyrell, the queen was indeed a very important part. Moreover, Wang Chong and the others had been planning for many days, intending to promote Li Anping through the queen. Such as charity auctions, missions abroad, condolences to soldiers, grand weddings, state banquets, etc. Li Anping naturally would not talk in circles with Wang Chong. He asked directly, "Do you have someone chosen?" Wang Chong looked directly into Li Anping's eyes and said, "Miss Anna, Miss Li Qian, Xiao Suesu, Claudia, or any other woman that your Majesty is interested in, it doesn't matter who or how many." "Okay." Li Anping stood up, "Today's meeting ends here. Next, I have to go to the boundary crossing gate. I will choose Anna, Li Qian, Xiao Suesu, and Claudia. But you need to communicate with them in advance. If they want, let me know. The wedding should be done as soon as possible, it can be done within a month." Wang Chong lowered his head and said, "I understand." Among the 4 candidates, he was sure of Anna and Li Qian. As for Xiao Suesu and Claudia, as women who were so close to Li Anping, if they did not marry Li Anping, they would probably end up alone in this life. Wang Chong did not know whether Li Anping considered this point before agreeing to these candidates, but added the premise of seeking their consent. To be continued. Please search for Piaotian literature, the novels are better and updated faster. Man at the top of the food chain. Author, Xionglang Guo. Chapter 422. In the void of the universe, about hundreds of thousands of kilometers away from the Earth, Li Anping flashed out from a white light and was quietly floating in front of the gate. As he stepped into the gate, he arrived at the white land in an instant. Seeing him appear, more than a dozen soldiers who stayed in the white land all came up and bowed to greet him. "You have worked hard." Li Anping nodded. "Get ready, it will take me about half an hour to build the space station and the warp gate." "Your Majesty, you have worked hard. Let's go and notify the Brothers of Magic Star." The soldiers immediately cheered excitedly. The soldiers who stayed behind were mainly responsible for guarding the outpost base of the White Land. There were many equipments here that needed them to maintain, and in addition, there were hundreds of thousands of captives in the Amara Basin. Among so many captives, there were magicians and magic marshals. If it weren't for the existence of Sabelius and Mephisto, who saw Li Anping's power with their own eyes and suppressed the voices of resistance from all the captives, rebellion would be a certainty. Although it was only a few days, the threat of the demons and the hundreds of thousands of captives who were eyeing them covetously had kept their nerves tense. Now that Li Anping had appeared, they finally breathed a sigh of relief. Li Anping nodded to them and waved his hand. Under his operation, countless particles in the white earth had turned into various alloy strips and passed through the gate, and came to the opposite universe. The universe was almost a vacuum, and there were very few atoms and electrons in it. Li Anping's creation was not created out of thin air, and he still needed materials, so he came to the white earth to pick up some materials. After making more than 500,000 tons of various materials and pulling them through the gate, Li Anping left behind the soldiers who were amazed, followed him across the gate, and began to build a space station. As his consciousness moved, countless alloys twisted, deformed, and even redecomposed and reassembled, just like a child making a sand castle on the beach. A cross-shaped space station was slowly taking shape in front of Li Anping. If the demons break through the defense line of the White Land, this will be the first line of defense of the Earth in the solar system. So Li Anping built this space station very seriously. It is about the size of 10 aircraft carriers, consisting of two parts, one horizontal and one vertical, each about 6 kilometers long. There are 4 folding gates on the top, bottom, left and right of the cross, and the cross boundary gate is in the center. According to Li Anping's calculations, this space gate will revolve around the Sun along the original orbit of the Earth together with the cross boundary gate. In addition to the folding gate, Li Anping also built many living facilities, monitoring devices, power equipment, etc. There will be soldiers stationed in the space station for a long time in the future, so he built everything he needed at once. And as the first line of defense of the solar system against demons, Li Anping also installed many weapon systems in the space war. It is even equipped with antimatter bombs, which can be used as a means of self-destruction when the space station cannot resist. About half an hour later, after the basic facilities of the space station were completed, Li Anping transformed again and flew to the moon at the speed of light. Because he did not intend to locate the 4 folding gates of the space station directly to the Earth. In that case, once the demons attacked, there was a possibility that they would come to the Earth directly through the folding gates. Although it stands to reason that once the space station could not resist, the Earth would cut off the 4 folding gates, but even if there was a possibility, Li Anping did not intend to take risks. So his plan was that if the demons controlled the folding gates, the second battlefield would be the moon instead of directly fighting on the Earth. And if the demons came to the space station, the moon would close the folding gate between the moon and the Earth. And he rushed to the moon next. It was to build the folding gate of the moon and then prepare for the construction of the moon base. As the backing of the space station, a large number of troops would be stationed here for a long time. Even after the Earth was completely transformed, except for some basic security teams, most of the troops might be moved to the moon, the space station and the White Land. After arriving at the moon at the speed of light, Li Anping directly chose the back of the moon as the base location. As Li Anping raised his right hand, countless huge steel walls rushed out from the ground. They entangled with each other in mid-air and formed various buildings, just like a fast-forwarded shot. However, feeling the gravity of the moon, Li Anping suddenly snapped his fingers, and the gravity of the entire moon was adjusted to about 1.1 times that of the Earth in this snap. In Li Anping's plan, the cannon fodder troops on the Earth will all be composed of mechanical troops in the future. And the real human beings will implement elite management. The warriors selected from humans must be trained to be the elite among the elites. So he adjusted the gravity of the entire moon to 1.1 times the gravity of the Earth. In the future, the warriors on this moon, except for the machines, will be the elites among humans. As their strength grows, perhaps the gravity of the moon will be adjusted higher and higher. Well, after the construction of the folding gate is completed, the headquarters of Daxia Dragonbird and the Virtual Number Agency should all be built here. The Earth will become the eternal fortress of mankind. Then maybe the moon can also. No, the moon is still too fragile. Maybe we can transform a few neutron stars and turn them into Death Stars, station the Legion there, and make them weapons for mankind. But it's still too time-consuming and labor-intensive for me to do this kind of thing now. The third phase, the power of quantum computing, needs to be further liberated. While Li Anping was thinking about this, countless calculations were still going on in his mind, whether it was the work of nano-worms on the Earth or the construction of bases on the Moon, they did not stop. However, because the distance from the Earth is relatively far, the signal is delayed, so Li Anping handed over part of the control work to the quantum computer currently under the Daxia Lonke base. By the way, let's also take a look at the effects of artificial intelligence. While Li Anping was carrying out various constructions, the galaxy where the magic star was located, on an asteroid about the size of a football field, Dionysus was sitting cross-legged on the ground, his eyes closed, and he was lost in some kind of meditation. Obviously, after learning that Li Anping could perform light-speed attacks, he did not choose to continue hiding on the magic star, which would be too easy to find. So I chose an asteroid far away from the magic star. Since the battle with Li Anping, it was not just Li Anping who took a crucial step. Dionysus also benefited a lot, if the information about the Earth originally given to him by Shang Tian only inspired him. So now, after the battle with Li Anping, he really paid attention to the materials Shang Tian gave him. And every move, every detail, and every sentence Li Anping used in the battle with him was constantly replayed in his mind. During this period, with the help of extraordinary wisdom and energy, as well as the assistance of various magics, he read through all the material on physics and mathematics. As the strongest magician in Mondo continent, he already has the ability to remember photographs. The same goes for those earthly materials. It's just that he simply memorized it before and didn't understand it carefully. At this moment, Dionysus suddenly opened his eyes, a flash of understanding flashed in his eyes, and he couldn't help laughing. The asteroid he sat on suddenly changed, and countless rocks, minerals, and metals began to dissipate. It's not that it breaks down into pieces, but that it truly disappears completely. And as Dionysus opened his right hand, a transparent gem suddenly appeared in his palm. I see. Energy and matter can be converted into each other. This is the creation of the void. Halfway through his laughter, Dionysus's eyes flashed with pride and he murmured, Li Anping, next time we meet, I will give you a big surprise. You will regret what you did. The next moment, the entire asteroid had completely disappeared, and Dionysus opened a portal in the void, and his entire body disappeared into it. To be continued, please search Ocean Literature. The novels will be better and updated faster. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Man at the top of the food chain. Author, Xionglang Go. Chapter 423. Li Anping spent about 6 hours to build a lunar base that was half the size of Tianjing. The entire moon was also covered with a large number of nano-worms, preparing for the future Xianwang. After completing these, Li Anping walked directly into the warp gate from the moon to the Earth, and returned to the Daxia Lonke base underground in Tianjing in a blue light. In front of him appeared Beizing, SpecialAbilities, and a total of 2,000 people who were ready to go. In addition, in front of the warp gates of other military regions, there were a large number of ordinary soldiers, engineering robots, and a large number of materials, parts and components, which were used by the Earth Army to manufacture various war machines after arriving at the Magic Star. Your Majesty. Looking at Beizing and SpecialAbilities bowing in front of him, Li Anping patted their shoulders and said, I will go there in person today to help you build something, but the matter of conquering the entire Magic Star will be handed over to you from tomorrow. After all, Li Anping has spent many days on Earth's affairs. Now that Earth has a great advantage over Magic Star, he does not intend to intervene anymore. After all, he still needs to spend more time to complete the power development of the third stage of quantum computing. At this point, only when Li Anping is stronger can the entire human race become stronger. Bai Xing and the others were shocked when they heard this, and shouted, "I will not fail my mission." Li Anping nodded and walked towards the folding gate first. Let's go, and see it together. First, they will set up the lunar base, followed by the space gate, and at the same time rush to Magic Star to completely receive the captives. And build a colony base in the Amara Basin, and the captives will be the first batch of residents and laborers of this base. But when Li Anping led his troops across the boundary gate and came to the Magic Star, he found that something was wrong here. Missing, looking at the soldier with some scratches on his face, Bai Xing whispered, "What happened?" "Sir, it should be those natives who did it." The soldier's face still had hatred. "They attacked us." Bai Xing had just gathered the soldiers left on the Magic Star. He received a report of 3 missing people. According to the report of his subordinates, it is very likely that it was done by the magicians or warriors among the captives. Although the Earth Army only sent out 20,000 people at the beginning, relying on cross-era weapons, it finally slaughtered more than 300,000 people of the Magic Alliance. This is definitely a blood feud. If it weren't for the powerful prestige of the Magic Marshal SpecialAbilities, who temporarily suppressed their resistance, I'm afraid the two sides would have fought again long ago. However, although these natives knew nothing about the temporary evacuation of Li Anping and Bai Xing and others, the reduction in the number of Earth troops still made them feel a little. Then some minor frictions occurred between the two sides. At first, it was just someone insulting the soldiers of the Earth side. Later, it became a gathering and rioting. Today, there is an incident of the disappearance of soldiers from the Earth side. And the Magic Coalition came here through a portal. So the news of the defeat quickly spread throughout the continent. Recently, the enemy's spies can often be found on the edge of the Amara Basin, which has caused instability among the captives. Although this defeat is a heavy loss for the 5 empires, it is obviously impossible for them to accept the defeat so easily. It's just that one of the 5 magic marshals escaped, 1 surrendered, and 3 died, and the son of the demigod Adam was missing, and Dionysus had not issued a new order. That made them hesitate. Bai Xing stood aside and asked, "Your Majesty, do you want to call SpecialAbilities over?" Li Anping closed his eyes, and countless mental waves and electromagnetic waves emanated from his body, enveloping the entire Amara Basin. When he opened his eyes again, he had revealed a trace of murderous intent. During his investigation, the 3 missing soldiers had been chopped up and thrown into a large pot of pig food for the captives. During this period, these captives lost their logistical supplies. All the food was made by magicians and found nearby, so it was inevitable that some of them were not in sufficient supply, which was one of the reasons for their trouble. But the cruelty and primitiveness of these aborigines still exceeded Li Anping's expectations. The 3 missing soldiers were eaten, and the nano-armor on them was stripped off and hidden as treasure. "Our people must not die in vain," Li Anping said to Bai Xing on the side. "Let them gather all the captives, and the 12 people below, all tied up for me. I want to execute them." Then Li Anping reported the location of the 12 captives who attacked or ate the 3 soldiers and the cats to Bai Xing. When the fully armed dragon bird guards wearing nano armor rushed into the camp of the captives to arrest people, a conflict immediately occurred. Even thousands of indigenous soldiers stood up to stop them. But facing Jing Guang, who led the team personally, they had no power to stop him. Unless SpecialAbilities took action himself. But SpecialAbilities had seen Li Anping's power with his own eyes. How could he do such a thing? In just a few hours, the news had spread throughout the camp, and it took more than 6 hours for all the captives to slowly gather under the high platform where Li Anping was. The dense crowd of hundreds of thousands squeezed together, almost covering half of the Amara Basin. It is said that they gathered together, but because there were too many people, the people standing in the back could not see what was happening in front. All the soldiers on the Earth side were dispatched to guard these prisoners, but even if they were wearing nano armor and holding gauze rifles, an average Earth soldier had to guard more than 10 prisoners. Therefore, the fierce eyes of these natives and their eagerness to move still made the soldiers a little flustered. Suddenly, a huge projection of Li Anping appeared in the sky, and everyone looked up at the image in the sky. After getting along for a few days, these native soldiers had long known that the so-called evil demons had a human face, so they were not surprised by this. Instead, when they saw Li Anping and the 12 Tide soldiers appearing in the sky, they immediately became turbulent, and the hatred in their eyes seemed to be enough to melt the space. Li Anping looked at the turbulent captives under his feet and did not say much. Instead, he directly announced the crimes of the 12 natives and issued a death sentence. In order to make the death penalty more deterrent, Li Anping deliberately chose beheading that the natives could understand. When the 12 natives were about to accept the death penalty in the video, the scene immediately became boiling. The noise turned into countless noises, and the buzzing sound made it almost impossible to hear what Li Anping said. And this situation reached a peak after the first native's head was chopped off. Under the high platform, the closest to Li Anping, thousands of native soldiers with bare hands and confiscated weapons rushed out first, wanting to rush to the high platform to rescue the prisoners sentenced to death. Among them, there were even 5 magicians who directly released magic. They communicated with each other through mental connection. Although it was very secretive, in front of Li Anping, it was no different from shouting directly. "Do it! Attack the evil demon king! SpecialAbilities has fallen. How can a magician succumb to these beasts?" It can be said that after surrendering, the magicians were the most dissatisfied. Because unlike SpecialAbilities, they had never seen the power that Li Anping possessed. He even participated in the close combat with the ability users and had the upper hand for a time. For them, the most dangerous thing about those evil demons is the steel beasts they have tamed. Once the distance is shortened, these evil demons who cannot master magic will be vulnerable. The scene of sentencing in front of them is obviously the best opportunity for counterattack in their eyes. Seeing these soldiers and mages with hideous faces and crazy attacks, Li Anping waved his hand gently and said, "Kill all the rebels." The next moment, countless metal storms enveloped the soldiers who rushed over, making them fall down in pieces like rows of harvested wheat. As for the 5 wizards, although the ordinary gauze rifles could not tear their protective force field for a while, a figure had already come to their side. I saw that by Xing's body, hundreds of acupoints exuded endless power. All kinds of magnetic fields, gravity, and magic elements were completely swallowed up by these acupoints. At the beginning, Shang Tian only sent him 9 acupoints. But facing the temptation of such power, Bai Xing was distracted for only a short moment, and was overwhelmed by his awe of Li Anping. So he handed the thing over to Li Anping directly. It turned out that he did nothing wrong. Li Anping not only calculated all 720 acupoints with him, but also captured Adam and others in one fell swoop. Now he naturally does not need to suppress himself to exert the power of 9 acupoints. I saw the purple knife light flash in the air, and the 5 magicians were cut into countless pieces by this power that was enough to split the sea. When the killing under the platform was spread by the image in the sky, more captives were angry. "If you are a man, pick up the sword and chop down all these sons of bitches. They want to kill us all. If you don't want to die, rush out with me. Kill them." Most of the ordinary soldiers were still immersed in the fear of evil demons because of the artillery bombardment and the death of the magic marshal. But even so, there were still tens of thousands of captives rushing towards the earth soldiers around them. Even dozens of magicians began to cast magic. Seeing the scene in front of him, SpecialAbilities, who was also participating in the execution, sighed softly and closed his eyes. SpecialAbilities' face was also a little ugly. He didn't expect that after being bombarded for so long and more than 300,000 people died, These indigenous soldiers in front of him actually dared to resist after resting for a few days. I don't know whether they are ignorant and fearless, or really so fearless. However, before those magicians released the magic in their hands, one after another, high-energy lasers with the thickness of a thumb fell from the sky and pierced their heads accurately. Except for a hole on the forehead, no other injuries could be seen, and the people around them did not receive any injuries, just as precise as a surgical operation. A total of 72 magicians who resisted, none of them escaped Li Anping's attack. Without the support of the magicians, the indigenous troops who didn't even have weapons in their hands were obviously no match for modern weapons. In just a few minutes, thousands of people fell in a pool of blood. Such brutal killing lasted for more than 20 minutes. When the bodies of these natives exceeded 50,000, covering a large area of the ground, and the blood seemed to dye the entire basin red, the crowd finally fell silent. Except for sporadic gunshots and roars, no sound could be heard in the entire Amara basin. At this time, Li Anping's voice, speaking in the common language of the Mondo continent, resounded through the sky again. I am Li Anping, and I am also the king of evil demons in your opinion. I am also the future owner of this land under your feet, this planet. From today on, I will become your ruler, and my words will be your will, which will be implemented in every corner of this land. For all those who dare to resist, death will be the only result. To be continued, please search Ocean Literature. The novel is better and updated faster. Man at the top of the food chain. Author, Xionglang Guo. Chapter 424. After the remaining captives fell silent, Li Anping sent soldiers to escort them back to the camp. Then he began to distribute food from earth to them. This was like a big stick plus a red date. After letting them understand the cruel reality through death, they were not completely despaired. After all, in the future, to occupy the entire magic star, the strategy of the Earth side still has to rely on many locals to manage the country. These captives in front of them will be a beginning. In the camp, Ed looked at the bread and milk in his hand, and felt a lot of saliva secreted in his mouth. He took a bite carefully, and the fragrance in his mouth made him close his eyes in satisfaction. The taste of this bread is much better than the dry food or black bread he ate in the army in the past. He drank the milk carefully, and then hid the remaining half of the bread in his arms. Walter, who was standing by, walked over to him and sat down. He looked at the Earth soldiers who were guarding the camp wearing silver-white nano armor, and whispered, "Ed, what do you think these silver demons are going to do with us?" "I don't know. This should be a concern for those magic masters. Anyway, as long as I don't resist, they don't seem to kill me." Ed shrugged and said nonchalantly, "If I can eat such delicious bread and milk every day, it doesn't matter if I am their captive for the rest of my life." Walter frowned. He knew that Ed had no family, so he was not very anxious after being captured. But he had a family, and now he was thinking about how to escape from here and go back. Originally, he thought that the coalition had so many people and so many wizards, and it would be easy to escape together after the riot. But after the massacre just now, he obviously didn't think so. These silver demons are more powerful, evil, and cruel than the legend. Ed on the side curled his lips and said, "You don't still want to escape, do you? You saw it just now. Even those wizards are useless. Even the magic marshal has surrendered. I think unless Lord Dionysus takes action, even if the reinforcements come, it's hard to say who will win." Walter frowned and thought of the nightmare-like battle again. Roaring steel monsters, unextinguishable flames, suffocating air. Just as he fell into silence, a team of Earth soldiers came to their camp, and two robots more than 2 meters tall, wrapped in black metal, with 2 huge feet also appeared in front of them at the same time. That is an intelligent combat robot. Defender. It can be used to fight automatically by program, or it can be remotely controlled by humans for semi-intelligent combat. In addition to the Gauss automatic machine gun on the shoulder, it is also equipped with plasma flamethrowers, great white shark rockets, electromagnetic deflection passports and other weapons. It can be called a super killing machine on the battlefield. However, because the action speed is very ordinary, it did not fight in the last battle. On the contrary, they are often used in the work of guarding prisoners. This is not the first time that prisoners like Walter and Ed have seen this kind of steel puppet. But the steel puppets in front of them are more sophisticated and smarter than those made by the mages. Some people say that the silver-white demons sucked away the souls of humans and sealed them in those steel puppets. Some people also say that someone is hiding in these puppets to manipulate them. But Walter doesn't think so. The space available in those steel puppets is too small, and at most only a child can stay in them. He thinks these steel puppets may be some unknown monsters. Just like those monsters that swallow flames. Just as everyone looked at the steel puppets and the soldiers around them with a vigilant look, the other party spoke. These silver demons speak in a strange way. Although they are all common languages. But they often speak in the same tone and the same voice, as if the same person is speaking. And they often make some grammatical errors, just like a 3-year-old child who has just learned to speak. Walter and others certainly don't know. This is the Earth soldier using the translation function of the nano armor, and all they hear are the same electronic sounds. After all, not every soldier can be proficient in the language, or learn the language of the Mondo continent by his own learning ability. Therefore, the simultaneous translator of the Mondo Common Language prepared by the Royal Academy of Sciences is very useful. Then he heard the silver demon in front of him say, "We need to select some managers from among you to help us manage you. Who of you is interested?" Seeing these indifferent captives, the soldier also knew their attitude. After asking several times and still not getting an answer, he pointed to Walter and said, "You, come with us." Walter pointed at himself and said in surprise, "Me," then he thought of his family and felt the strange eyes of his companions around him. He lowered his head and said, "Sir, I can't do it. Please change someone." The Earth soldier originally just randomly pointed at one person, and after hearing this, he pointed at Ed and said, "Then it's your turn." Seeing Ed stand up and leave with the silver demons, Walter breathed a sigh of relief, and together with the people around him, he looked at Ed with pity. In their eyes, the other party betrayed so easily and helped the evil demons to do things, and naturally there would be no good results in the end. Amara's outpost. Bizing looked at the representatives selected from various camps to manage the indigenous soldiers through the glass window and nodded. According to satellite detection and Sibelius's intelligence, the entire Mondo continent has a population of about 2 billion. If you want to rule them in a place with a standard of living similar to that of the Middle Ages, it is inevitable to use local people to manage it. And Li Enping does not need the resources of this planet. On the contrary, he will improve the productivity level here and allow the civilization of the entire Mondo continent to develop rapidly. Compared with natural resources, what Li Enping needs more is soldiers who can fight. Therefore, in the eyes of the Earth government, magicians are the specialty of this colony. Because Li Enping deeply understands the power of demons. They were born in the White Land, but traveled through infinite worlds, occupying and destroying countless universes. The total number of demons far exceeds that of humans. There is not even an accurate number in Seagram's memory, but from low-level demons to high-level demons, the number is at least measured in megabytes, so it does not count the mass. That staggering amount alone is a huge problem. Therefore, after completely conquering this place, promoting magician education on a large scale and absorbing talented magicians will be one of the strategies of this colony. And the magic star will become one of the sources of soldiers for the Earth. In an asteroid belt, there are irregular meteorites, asteroids, and radiation everywhere. There is no air, no water, and the temperature exceeds -100 degrees. It can be said that this is a real restricted area for life. but in such a restricted area of life. Dionysus stood quietly among them, and saw streaks of black light flickering outside his body, and then pulling meteorites over one after another. Before these meteorites got close to his body, they were directly broken down into countless particles, and then disappeared directly in an inexplicable wave. Yes, they completely disappeared from this universe. As more and more matter disappeared, the black light on Dionysus became stronger and stronger. An increasingly terrifying wave continued to emerge from his body. It was as if his strength was increasing at an unprecedented speed. At first it was just meteorites, then asteroids. More and more materials were put into Dionysus' body, making his power grow endlessly. He opened his eyes. Light comparable to the sun shot out from his eyes, seeming to completely penetrate the world. An excited smile broke out on his face, and he opened his mouth and let out a silent cry. The terrible fluctuations directly swept through the nearby asteroid belt thousands of kilometers away. It broke everything down into the most basic atoms, and then absorbed them all into Dionysus' body. Good, that's it. This is the power that God should have. In about a year, I can absorb the entire asteroid belt. At that time, I only need 1 day to swallow the entire planet. The next step is the sun, river systems, star clusters, and even the entire universe. I will become the only god in this world. At this time, Dionysus had focused all his attention on his own path to becoming a god. The so-called evil spirits and Li Anping had not paid attention to him at all. And just when he was completely immersed in the ecstasy of becoming a god, a blue tunnel suddenly appeared in front of his eyes, like a whirlpool in the sea, and a man wrapped in blue light appeared in front of him. In front of Dionysus subconsciously attacked, trying to capture the person who suddenly appeared in front of him. The gravity spell was activated instantly, and 10 times the gravity was applied to the opponent's body, but there was no response. So 10 times the gravity immediately turned into 100 times the gravity, and the other party still looked unchanged. Just when Dionysus was about to use another attack, the other party spoke. A thought directly passed through Dionysus's layers of protection and entered his mind. Don't make boring attempts. What's in front of you is just a message. Do you think you can attack the message? Dionysus said coldly, who are you? A person from Earth? Or a person from Mondo continent? Humans. Why are you always so lacking in imagination? There are more than just creatures like you in this world. The cyan figure shrugged and said, I am the tide of chaos, the spokesperson of chaos in the multiverse, the White Earth. One of the demons. The reason I'm talking to you in human form is because I think it's easier for you to accept. I didn't expect that your first choice would still be to attack rather than communicate. Human beings are indeed one of the rudest creatures in the universe. Dionysus naturally didn't know what the White Earth and the so-called demon god represented. No one gave him any information in this regard. But the other party gave him a very dangerous feeling, and he said with a wary face, Chaos Tide, why did you come to me? Don't be nervous. I am a demon who hates violence and likes communication. It is too devoid of beauty to assimilate everything, destroy everything, or eat everything like other demons do. Chaos is the true essence of the entire multiverse. All worlds will be in chaos forever, and the so-called order is just a short stay between chaos and chaos. Dionysus said coldly, I am not at all curious about your interests and hobbies. Tell me your purpose of coming here. Seeing that Dionysus in front of him still did not relax at all, and the magic elements around him were gathering rapidly, preparing to launch the next wave of attacks, Chaos Tide smiled and said, I came here for only one purpose, which is to create chaos. There is not much that can be done on the earth, so I came here to find you. The simple mass energy conversion cannot help you defeat Li Anping, but if you add this, you can add some interesting variables. Accompanied by the laughter of Chaos Tide, his whole body has turned into countless blue streams and disappeared. But Dionysus found that there was an inexplicable memory in his mind. The next moment, his eyes showed a burst of ecstasy. To be continued, please search for Ocean Literature. The novel is better and updated faster. Man at the top of the food chain. Author, Seong-Lang Go. Chapter 425. In a void across countless universes. Just as the chaos tide sent the information to Dionysus, an unprecedented war almost swept across another universe. Every second, hundreds of millions of star battleships were falling. Countless planets were also ignited and lives were destroyed. The destructive force like a starry sky turned into various brilliances, shining in the nebula. At the same time, two terrifying consciousnesses appeared in a star system one after another, constantly colliding and entangled with each other. Ching, are you using your inexplicable chaos theory again? We should occupy this universe instead of provoking their civil war and coldly watching these ants' meaningless fights. No, I believe that the entire multiverse was born from a conscious thinking, and the essence of consciousness is the collection of countless chaos. Our existence is by no means accidental. The universe will not change because of conscious thinking. Matter exists forever, but it is constantly moving and changing. Even we are just a part of the multiverse. Your war just proves my theory. Both sides of the war will eventually turn into historical dust, and the universe will still operate according to the existing laws. Huang, one success or failure cannot prove anything. While we were arguing, I spread a few more seeds of chaos. One day they will prove my theory. The next moment, the two consciousnesses were no longer talking. They were like a storm in the universe, sweeping across the entire star system, and then suddenly disappeared. But these two demons were separated by countless worlds, and the aftermath of just talking in the air was enough to produce all kinds of catastrophic consequences. As the two thoughts swept through, the star in this star system was directly extinguished, and its exterior began to expand until the pressure increased to a certain limit, and it would gradually change into a new white dwarf. And all the life in the entire star system gradually died after losing light and heat. More than 20 days later, in Tianjing, in the study of the Imperial Palace, Li Anping floated in the air, his eyes closed, and countless rays swept through his body, detecting every particle in his body. The third stage of quantum computing. To change the operation process of each particle, it takes a huge amount of energy and computing power, and keep this state all the time. But with the simulation of the quantization process, I will also develop unprecedented power. According to my calculations, every 7 days, my power will double. This speed cannot be changed, and it is meaningless to simply retreat. The next moment, Li Anping opened his eyes, fell to the ground, and walked out the door. In a month, the simple folding door has entered every household, and Li Anping's study is no exception. But this time, the folding door did not start. Li Anping stepped out like a ghost, walked directly through the door, and came to the outside of the study. He took a deep breath. The oxygen content in the air has been adjusted to the most suitable ratio for human survival, which can effectively promote the blood circulation of the human brain and enhance the efficiency of human thinking. Looking up, there is bright sunshine in the sky. The whole Earth has not rained for more than a month. Because the water circulation in the atmosphere has been handed over to nanoworms. However, according to the recent voting results of citizens' intentions, starting from next week, Li Anping will choose 3 days of rain every month. However, because every drop of rain is under the control of Li Anping, so they will not drip on humans, nor will they form puddles or cause other negative effects. When every drop of rain comes to the human body, it will automatically move away along the edge of the human body and fall directly into the city's drainage system, or merge into the sea. If humans want to get wet in the rain, they can only go home and shower in the shower room. As he appeared outside the door, Xiao Suesu immediately stood up and said, "Your Majesty, do you need any arrangements?" Although Li Anping can now send all information to any terminal on the entire Earth with just a thought, Xiao Suesu still sticks to his past habits and tries to stay as close to Li Anping as possible, waiting for his call. After the wedding, you will become my wife, and you don't have to do this. Li Anping saw Xiao Suesu's stubborn eyes and didn't continue. Just like after there are airplanes, there are still people who like trains. After the emergence of computer games, there are still people who miss red and white machine games. Humans are not machines. They like the most efficient means, but they don't always like to use the most efficient means. Although Li Anping doesn't need Xiao Suesu's care, the other party's attitude still makes his long cold heart feel a little warm. Although he already knew everything he wanted to know on Earth just by the transmission of information, he still chatted with Xiao Suesu in front of him for a few words, just like an ordinary human being. Are Claudia and Anna here? Yes, Your Majesty, but Miss Anna has been working overtime in recent days and rarely lives in the palace. For more than 20 days, Li Anping has been staying in the study room of the palace to study his body, and the changes in the whole world are getting bigger and bigger. In addition to Li Anping's continuous optimization of the environment, with the popularity of folding doors, people's travel has become easier than ever, and the distance between the Earth has been reduced again. But there are still some people who oppose Li Anping's transformation, and they are called the World Green Organization. However, members of this organization only call on people online and on the streets to return to nature, return to the streets, and maintain the original style of the city in the past. Other than that, they do not have any radical ideas. Therefore, the Earth government did not send anyone to ban them. However, with the popularity of folding doors and the various benefits brought by environmental improvements, their supporters have become fewer and fewer. There are even reports that high-level people in the organization use jump doors to travel on a daily basis. Not only that, in addition to the folding gate, Li Anping also handed over to the Royal Academy of Sciences all kinds of scientific and technological information obtained from the Red Queen, as well as various theories and designs of ultra-modern facilities that he spent a few minutes sorting out. Let them slowly promote it to the world. Today is the first time Xianwang has landed in major warp gate sales stores on the Earth. Xianwang is an important means for Li Anping to build the entire Earth in the future, so he can't help but focus on the sales situation of major stores. Tianjin, on the 25th Avenue. Since early this morning, citizens have been queuing up in long lines at the stores selling goods at Jiyumen. It looks like the way enthusiasts lined up to buy mobile phones, games or game consoles in the past. However, unlike in the past when people rushed through the street one by one, this time the people queuing up came out of the store and walked through the long queue to the end. This is because most people teleport directly from the jump door at home to the jump door in the store, and then come out of the store. Now every store in Tianjin is directly funded by the government to replace their front door with a folding door. In order to cope with Suan Wang's first day of sales, store employees stayed open all night today. Because everyone came directly through the jump gate, which was very convenient, the number of people queuing far exceeded the size of the queue for any product in the past. Even because there were too many people, the jump gates were congested. The store temporarily increased the number of jump gates to solve this problem. At the same time, reporters from the TV station arrived to interview the citizens who were lining up. "Hello sir, what time did you start queuing up?" "Oh, I went to bed at 6 o'clock last night and came here at 3 o'clock this morning, but I didn't expect there were so many people." "Then what makes you come and line up so early? Or what is it about Xianwang that attracts you?" Different people naturally have different answers to this question. An otaku wearing glasses said, I have read the introduction of Xianwang. It can send signals to all electronic instruments by analyzing human brain waves. Not only the jump gate, but also computers, televisions, etc. hot water kettles, air conditioners, almost everything I have at home can be controlled by my mind. This is simply an epoch-making product. A middle-aged woman said, "The elderly at home always make mistakes when inputting coordinates on the keyboard. I thought this Xianwang was very convenient, so I came over to take a look. I didn't expect there to be so many people." On the other side, several girls said one after another, "This mysterious net was also invented by His Majesty Li Enping, and we are here specifically to support His Majesty. 1 2 3 Long live your Majesty." These are obviously Li Enping's female fans. Just a few hours later, the first person in the world to buy Xianwang appeared, a martial artist in Baiyu. On his index finger, he saw a silver-white ring with no pattern visible. Because Xianwang used a suspense promotion method in its previous promotions, no one knew what Xuanwang's external equipment looked like. It was not until this moment that the answer was revealed. When the warrior took the ring, walked towards a jump door without inputting any destination, and disappeared in a blue light, instead of directly crossing the jump door. Buyers on the whole street were excited. But they won't know what it means until much later. To be continued, please search Ocean Literature. The novels will be better and updated faster. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Man at the top of the food chain. Author, Xiong Go. Chapter 426. During these days of Li Enping's retreat, the base in the Amara Basin on the Magic Star was also in full swing. As more and more Earth soldiers and engineering robots come here, a large number of factories and lathes are continuously manufactured. The streamlined and systematic manufacturing system of human civilization has shown unparalleled power. Combat vehicles, fighter jets, tanks, combat robots, and transport ships were assembled and manufactured one after another. The huge war machinery shocked the nerves of the captives time and time again, constantly crushing their fighting spirit to resist. In the past half a month, perhaps because of the loss of Dionysus' unified command, although the five empires and other small countries have sent many spies to continuously explore the surrounding areas of the basin, they have not yet sent any spies. Come to the army. Based on the confessions of the captured spies and the judgment of the staff, it was obvious that these countries were not united. Without the restraint of a powerful force like Dionysus, they fell into various internal strife before the war began. In particular, 4 of the 5 major empires lost their magic marshals. The Saint Laurent Empire, located in the Amara Basin, had its capital bombed, countless towns destroyed, and its magic marshals surrendered to the enemy. It can be said that their vitality was seriously damaged. The top leaders of the entire country have been caught in an endless struggle for power, and the other 4 empires are also eyeing their weak old friend. If Saint Laurent is really in trouble, it would be nice to send some spies to the Amara Basin to collect intelligence, but there is no time to continue fighting these silver demons. But this is obviously good news for the Earth. It can give them more time to assemble and build the Earth's weapons. After all, the size of the boundary gate is limited, and many powerful weapons are difficult to drive directly through. Otherwise, with combat weapons far beyond this era, the last war would definitely end more easily. And while the Earth's army continued to create one amazing weapon after another on the land of Magic Star, the prisoners who were managed layer by layer were also militarized by the Earth during this period of time. They are divided into groups of 10, with 10 groups forming one team and 10 teams forming one class. 10 squads form one battalion, and 10 battalions form one regiment. The leaders of each of these classes are indigenous soldiers appointed directly by the Earthside. Ed, who was previously elected captain, was directly promoted to squad leader due to his outstanding performance during training, replacing the original squad leader who opposed training. I saw dozens of people lying staggering on the grass. They had just finished a 10-kilometer run and they were all gasping for air, as if they were about to die. These silver demons torture us like this. I would rather go back and be a slave. The distance we have run is enough to go around Raven. Are these silver demons mentally ill? They want us to run like this every day. There's no point in standing in line anymore. Listening to a circle of people complaining. Ed didn't speak. He just looked at the time, clapped his hands and said, "Okay, it's rest time. Next is goose stepping training." The 5 worst performers didn't have dinner today. After hearing Ed's words, the indigenous soldiers who had just been lying on the ground complaining immediately stood up, compared to the harsh training. The food provided by the Earthside is very attractive to them. Even if it is just a customized fast food box, it is a delicacy that most of them have never been late for in their lives. And a series of runs, training in terms of cues. It was obvious that the tactics trained by the generals on Earth were used on the captives in front of them. Naturally, they did not expect any results from the training of these captives. They just hoped that through such training, they would enhance their discipline and obedience and help the Earth rule the entire magic star in the future. After all, these armies from the Middle Ages had really poor military discipline. Along with Ed's orders. While a group of people stood up quickly, some people looked at Ed, who was in the front row and was in charge of directing them, with very contempt and resentment. This traitor actually helped those silver demons to torture us. Someone sneered, "He won't be arrogant for long." After the 5-nation coalition forces arrive. Once the silver demon is sent back to the gate of hell, people like him will be dead. What an idiot for succumbing to the devil. Walter on the side listened to the voices of his companions and lowered his head silently. "I don't know what I'm thinking." But since Ed became the captain, he didn't talk to each other much. Obviously in his mind, Ed has become a target that may implicate him when the Empire is liquidated in the future. Just as everyone was kicking forward one after another under Ed's command, the Earth suddenly trembled. The tremors came from deep within the Amara Basin, within the vast expanse of metal buildings. What's going on? Are those evil buildings about to collapse? Those iron houses seemed to be shaking. 5 kilometers away from them was a huge building complex made entirely of metal, somewhat similar to a battleship and an aircraft carrier combined. When the people on Earth just built the shell of this building, they were laughed at by the indigenous people. The craftsmanship of these silver demons is very good, and the things they create are very exquisite, but they actually built a giant ship in the basin. It's still a giant ship made of steel. I bet this ship will never float even in the river. Maybe these silver demons like to build their houses like ships. But now, looking at the shaking earth in front of them and the floating aircraft carriers rising slowly in the distance. Those natives who once laughed at these buildings can no longer laugh. Zing ordered a total of 6 floating aircraft carriers to be built on the Magic Star. Their basic technology all came from the mothership of the God King in the past, and now they are combined with various epoch-making technologies provided by Li Enping. They were originally on trial voyage on Earth, but this time they were all ordered by Zing to be dismantled and sent to the Magic Star. These floating aircraft carriers all use 2 power systems of vacuum zero-point energy and antimatter power furnaces. Each one is more than 1.5 kilometers long, weighs 70,000 tons, has more than 100 gun muzzles under the hull, and can carry 50 of the latest Thunder fighters. Such floating aircraft carriers are the ultimate weapons that are completely beyond their imagination for the Mondo continent, which is still in the medieval civilization stage, in the war within the atmosphere. And flying, for these civilizations with low technological levels, has a special meaning. Such 6 floating aircraft carriers not only have great tactical value, but also have strong strategic significance, because in addition to their powerful destructive power, their own shocking power can offset the courage of most indigenous armies to resist. Although the magic of Mondo continent has been developed for thousands of years, it has always focused on the exploration of the mage itself, and there is no floating castle or magic warship that can rival the weapons of the Earth Army. When the plasma tail flames were ejected from the bottom of the 6 floating aircraft carriers, and the ship body like a hill flew to a height of hundreds of meters, the captives who were still training, complaining, or helping with the construction of the base all looked at the spacecraft in the sky stupidly, showing an extremely shocked look. You know, this world doesn't even have airplanes, but they can see the floating aircraft carriers directly. How is it possible? Why can these giant steel ships fly? This is the power of the devil. The spies outside the basin were all attracted by the floating aircraft carriers in the sky. They all looked at the sky in surprise, shocked by the war weapons that landed on Mondo continent for the first time. Your Majesty must be told immediately that the power of the demons is stronger than we thought. Without magic fluctuations, who can tell me how these 6 ships flew up? Go back and tell the President that these demons have weapons we don't know about. Standing in the command room of the floating aircraft carrier, Bai Xing looked at the shocked expressions of the captives on the display screen and nodded with satisfaction. The biggest role of the floating aircraft carrier is to deter these natives. Letting the 6 floating aircraft carriers stay on the magic star can greatly help the rule of the Earth. Thinking of this, Bai Xing pointed to the direction on the electronic map and ordered, "Start the orbital gun and give these natives a surprise." The spies more than 10 kilometers away did not know that they had become the target of the floating aircraft carrier. The shells fired at a speed of 20 kilometers per second, the spies sent to investigate were unable to react at all, and were directly torn into pieces by the violent shockwaves and scattered shrapnel. And this was just the first shell. Each of the 6 floating aircraft carriers had 24 rail guns. After a series of flashes of fire, accompanied by loud noises throughout the day, more than 10 kilometers away, a total of 6 locations where the spies were located had been submerged by huge explosions. The sky-high flames directly covered the entire surface. When the smoke gradually dissipated, only huge and ugly craters could be seen on the surface. The loud noise of the shells seemed to bring the captives back to that terrible war. They all looked at the floating aircraft carriers in the sky with fear and dread. At the same time, all the spies who were not attacked by the railguns also quickly retreated from the Amara basin. The silver demon drove the steel dragon that could soar in the sky. Each steel dragon could spray out huge iron blocks. Once these iron blocks fell on the ground, they would cause amazing explosions. Countless similar intelligence was delivered to the leaders of the 5 empires within a few days. To be continued, please search for Ocean literature. The novels are better and updated faster. Man at the Top of the Food Chain. Author, Xianglang Guo. Chapter 427. In the next 10 days, with the floating aircraft carriers in the sky as the vanguard, coupled with countless ground combat units, the entire Earth army was unstoppable on the Mondo continent. In just 10 days, the entire Saint Laurent continent had been completely conquered. In the face of this super technological combat weapon, the appearance of 6 floating aircraft carriers alone often made the opponent's indigenous army lose half of their courage, and the subsequent firepower coverage made everyone except the magicians powerless to resist. As for the magicians, because there are portals, charm humans, and other magic involving space and illusion, except for most magicians who died under artillery fire, there are always some magicians who can board the floating aircraft carrier and attempt to destroy the steel monster. However, each of the 6 aircraft carriers is guarded by powerful people: Bai Xing, Xiaolikan, Jingguang, Yanbei, Mephisto, Sabelius, etc. Each of them is a nightmare for those magicians who break into the floating aircraft carrier. Moreover, the aircraft carrier itself has a strong internal monitoring capability, with countless probes, infrared, thermal sensors, sonar, etc., plus internal lasers and gunpowder weapons, which can find and execute them by means far beyond the imagination of these wizards. Compared with defeating those medieval armies and wizards, what really consumes the Earth army's time is to receive the occupied territories and countless captives. However, at this time, the captive army trained in the Amara basin is very useful. Every time the Earth army defeats the local army in a town, it will kill or kidnap all the magicians, and then leave some Earth soldiers and captive soldiers to maintain the local administrative operation. and set up a warp gate in the local area. Without the magicians, the Earth warriors with nano armor, particle guns, and high-frequency knives are not something that ordinary people on the Mondo continent can fight. Moreover, once something happens, the Earth army in various locations can always come to support through the warp gate. So they can only accept the other party's rule helplessly. However, in addition to the threat of force, the food delivered and distributed by the Earth government through the warp gate, coupled with the good military discipline of the Earth army, have stabilized the emotions of the locals. Wiseman Empire, capital of Kansasan. In the palace hall, King Wendell III threw the report in his hand to the ground and shouted, "A bunch of trash. A steel dragon bigger than a town? A warship that can float in the sky? A steel bird that can fly in the sky and is bigger than a house? Every roar of the steel monster can cause an amazing explosion. Is this your intelligence? This is the information I got after losing more than 800 spies. Absurd. It's ridiculous. What I want to know is how many people there are on the other side, how those silver demons defeated the wizards, their weaknesses, what their weapons are, and what they eat. Not these fairy tales, fantasies. Poetry." Just when Wendell III was furious, a white-haired wizard came out. As the most powerful wizard in Wisman after the death of the Magic Marshal, and also the uncle of Wendell III, his words obviously carry a lot of weight in the entire empire. He just said quietly, "Your Majesty, according to the intelligence, the entire Saint Laurent Empire has been involved in the war. The so-called steel monsters, if there are only a few intelligence reports, it may still be doubted, but since all the spies have received the same intelligence, then we should accept this fact. The evil demons do have some terrible power, perhaps a power that can rival magic." As soon as he spoke, he immediately caused an uproar in the entire hall. Although the continuous intelligence about the evil demons has forced all the nobles to face the authenticity of this information, even the defeat of the 5 magic marshals and the son of the demigod Adam shocked them at the power of the evil demons. But this is the first time that someone has publicly said that the power of the evil demons may be able to rival magic. This is simply treason on the Mondo continent, which has maintained the supremacy of magic for thousands of years. Even Wendell III frowned. He was also a wizard. In fact, basically all the kings of Mondo continent were wizards. He was naturally unhappy to hear such words. "Sir Hyman, I don't agree with your conclusion. The greatness of magic is unquestionable. The defeat of the 5 great wizard marshals is only temporary. We still have the Wizard Corps, the Wizard Guild, the Imperial Royal Wizard, and the Temple Wizard. In terms of group combat, their role is even greater than that of the Wizard Marshal. The Saint Laurent Empire has been completely caught in the flames of war. What we need to do most now is to send troops to support them together with other countries. And the Cloud Courtyard, we need the guidance of Sir Dionysus. We can't send troops at will. The other 3 powers are still eyeing us. What if they are in our way?" Although Hyman's words were shocking, they still did not attract the attention of the nobles. The greatness of magic is too deeply rooted. In addition, the Mondo continent lacks the means to record images. They have never really seen the Earth's army, so it is really difficult for them to imagine the power of a modern army. Just as the entire hall was once again in a debate, a roar like a tsunami suddenly came from outside the palace, and countless thunderous roars came from the sky. The official of the Imperial Intelligence Department was shocked and immediately shouted, "It's the sound of the iron birds controlled by the silver demons." Just when everyone was briefly surprised by his words, a guard ran in, knelt in front of Wendell III, and shouted, "Your Majesty, 6 huge metal flying objects have come to the sky above the Imperial City." "What?" A few minutes later, Wendell III and a group of ministers came to a tower of the Imperial Palace. The sky of the entire Imperial Palace was covered by a huge shadow, and 6 floating aircraft carriers quietly stopped hundreds of meters above their heads. Countless fighters and aircraft flew over the sky of the entire capital from time to time, surrounding the 6 floating aircraft carriers, and making bursts of sonic booms. Wendell 3 looked at the behemoth in the sky with a grim face. At this moment, he finally knew what the intelligence written by the spies was about. And the king of any country would be in a bad mood if someone flew a flying vehicle directly to the top of his palace. The ministers on the side kept showing shock, surprise, and fear in their eyes. Even if there were many powerful wizards among them. However, the 6 floating aircraft carriers as big as hills still gave them a huge sense of oppression. At this moment, a ray of light flashed in front of them, and the holographic image of Bai Zing appeared in front of them. "Hello everyone, I guess you are the current king of Wiseman, Wendell 3." Bai Zing looked at Wendell 3, who was livid in front of him, and said lightly, "I am the marshal of the heavenly army of the God realm, Bai Zing. I came here only because the God King is about to come to the Mondo continent, and he will completely rule this land. And you now have 2 choices, surrender or die." In the early days of the Mondo continent, because of Adam's propaganda, all local natives treated the Earth Army as evil demons, which increased the Earth's unnecessary costs in ruling. So in order to rule the magic star more conveniently, the Earth Army decided to promote the Earth as the legendary god realm in the next battle, and Li Anping was naturally the legendary god of gods. This kind of religious-like ruling method is obviously much more effective than simple military suppression or inducement in this medieval era. The floating aircraft carriers and various modern weapons owned by the Earth Army can easily make the locals believe that they are from the God realm. The success of this method. I am afraid that the Earth will adopt a similar method when colonizing all the worlds with lower levels of civilization. God realm, Wendell 3 frowned and said. Yes, Adam blasphemed the gods and was killed by the God King himself. And Dionysus has also hidden because he is afraid of the wrath of the gods. Now, King of Wiseman, this is your last chance to atone for your sins. Whether to choose to accept the guidance of the God realm or the wrath of the gods depends entirely on your choice. Wendell 3 looked at the floating battleship in the sky. He looked at the White Star River in front of him again, and a trace of struggle flashed in his eyes. Finally, he roared, "Wiseman will never surrender, even if it is a god." As he spoke, a flame shot out from his fingertips, piercing the holographic image of the White Star River in front of him. I saw that the influence of the White Star River was like a bad signal, flashing a few times, revealing a sneer, and then completely disappeared. As Wendell 3 roared and attacked, the ministers behind him and the soldiers on the tower all cheered. Countless magic preparations were needed, and the siege crossbows engraved with magic spells were aimed at the floating aircraft carrier in the sky. Bai Zing, who was in the command room of the aircraft carrier, looked at the palace under his feet and the people full of fighting spirit on the screen. He ordered coldly, "Start Plan B." On the 6 floating aircraft carriers, 3 plasma cannons were aimed at the position of Wendell 3. The plasma with a temperature of more than millions of degrees directly submerged them. All the magic force fields and protective barriers were torn apart by the millions of degrees of high temperature in an instant, and they had no power to resist. As for the remaining people who evaded through gasification, teleportation, or substitution, they were automatically targeted by other railguns, electromagnetic guns, neutral particle guns, high-energy lasers, and other weapons. The fire control system of the entire floating aircraft carrier is controlled by an intelligent computer. With a reaction and performance far beyond that of humans, those magicians have no time to make too many counterattacks and will be blasted into pieces by the continuous attacks. A few powerful magicians were not killed at once and rushed directly to the floating aircraft carrier in the sky, but before they got close to the aircraft carrier for 100 meters, they were torn into pieces by the swarming fighters. In just a dozen seconds, the entire palace has turned into a sea of fire. The huge explosion and the UFOs in the sky caused a large-scale panic in the city. At this time, Bai Zing's voice once again spread throughout the city through the loudspeakers of the aircraft carrier. Wind all three accepted divine punishment for blaspheming the gods. From today on, the entire Weitzman will accept the guidance of the gods. All those who are willing to accept the guidance of the gods kneel on the spot. After 10 breaths, all those who are unwilling to accept guidance will bear the wrath of the gods. The next moment, various scanning devices have entered the location of everyone in the city into the computer, and countless gun barrels on the floating aircraft carrier are aimed downwards, and a brutal killing is about to begin. All those who are unwilling to kneel will be blown to pieces by the Gauss machine guns precisely controlled by computers, while those who are willing to surrender will escape and be managed by the Earth Army and prisoners. To be continued, please search Ocean literature. The novels are better and updated faster. Man at the Top of the Food Chain. Author, Xionglang Guo. Chapter 428. In the restaurant of the palace. On the huge dining table, there were only Li Anping and Anna, but at least hundreds of dishes from all over the world were placed. All over the world is not an adjective. Because of the existence of the folding gate, all these dishes came from famous kitchens in various countries around the world, and were cooked by local chefs and then sent to Li Anping's table. Although Li Anping himself did not need food, his words were enough to make the people below busy for half a day to prepare the most high-end banquet for him. Although there were only 2 people, Li Anping did not think that there were too many dishes or too wasteful. Because humans have never had such abundant food storage as they do now. All over the earth, whether animals or plants, they thrive under Li Anping's control. Whether food is wasted or not has no effect on humans. Li Anping pointed to a plate of beef and said, "This is the roasted beef shank made by the royal chef of Tyrell. It is cooked with unique spices. It takes 6 hours to prepare. The black cattle raised in the cracks of Tyrell are specially selected. It tastes good. I asked them to order it yesterday. You can try it." Although Li Anping himself had never eaten this famous dish, he had mastered the monitoring of the entire Earth status, and there was nothing on the Earth that he didn't know. On the other side, there was no need for Li Anping to tell him. Following his introduction, a maid took the initiative to cut the roasted beef shank and put it on a plate, and sent it to Li Anping and Anna's plates respectively. Seeing Anna take a small bite, Li Anping asked expectantly, "How is it? Is it delicious?" "Yeah," Anna smiled, "very tender and very tasty. As long as you like it." The next moment, the two fell into silence again. Although Anna had agreed to marry Li Anping, it was the first time the two met in the past few months. Compared to the last time, Anna is still full of youthful vitality. I don't know if it's because of work experience that her attractive face is thinner than before. But she also has an intellectual temperament. As for Li Anping on the opposite side, in terms of material structure, he has always been under his control in his daily state. As long as he doesn't take the initiative to change, there will not be even a slight physical change in his body. But Anna knows that Li Anping in front of her is very different from the past. Especially this time, the other parties move to change the world and completely transform the entire Earth environment. The power, like a god, makes ordinary people feel that they are far away from him. In fact, there are many religions on the earth that worship Li Anping. Li Anping is worshipped as a living god, and many people join the religion. Although the government feels a little strange, as long as they do not violate the law, there is no prohibition. Especially the god they worship is the current owner of the earth. When making decisions, the government below will of course consider Li Anping's mood, and even doubt whether Li Anping is happy to see this. However, for Li Anping, who is always monitoring the world, these things are just a small wave. Even if his current power is said to be a god, it is not an exaggeration. But if these religions really cross the line, Li Anping will deal with them himself. But this phenomenon of letting Li Anping ascend to the altar makes Anna feel that she is getting farther and farther away from Li Anping. But for some reason, when Wang Chong came to ask her in person whether she was willing to become one of Li Anping's wives, she agreed at once. Deep in her heart, there is always a soft place, which still stores the feelings she had for Li Enping when she was in college. In silence, Li Enping ate the beef tendon on the plate in one bite, but the beautiful taste could not attract more of his attention. Looking at Anna in front of him, he suddenly said, "Are you afraid of me?" Anna suddenly looked up in surprise, looked at Li Enping and said, "No, I just feel that time has passed so quickly and that you have changed a lot. Yes, I still remember when we were in college, we worked together. In the blink of an eye, you have graduated from graduate school and have been working for a year." Anna suddenly laughed in a low voice, "Do you still remember the road next to the Polytechnic Institute? When I went back last year, they changed the name of the road to Li Enping Road and built a statue of you in the square." Li Enping naturally knew about this matter. Not only did he know, but he could now see the scenery of Li Enping Road and his statue through endless nano-worms. At the beginning, the university expelled him under the pressure of the case, but later wanted to ease the relationship between the two parties through various flattering behaviors. But Li Enping naturally had no time to pursue such trivial matters. However, the new mayor of Zhongdu City thought he understood the intentions of his superiors. In order to please Li Enping, he cleaned up the entire university. All those who were involved in the dismissal of Li Enping were dismissed from their posts. Although he knew everything, when he heard what Anna said, Li Enping pretended to be an ordinary person who knew nothing and said with a smile, "Really? Let's go and see it together if we have a chance. By the way, are you busy with work recently? Are you happy with your work in the folding center? Do you need me to help you change your position?" No, Anna shook her head and said softly, "I like the work in the folding center very much. The lively feeling of the center of the world makes me feel very comfortable." "As long as you like it." Li Enping suddenly took out a tube of potion from under the table. He shook his finger, and the potion floated in front of Anna. "This is the potion of immortality. Although it cannot really achieve immortality, it can also greatly improve it. It can significantly slow down the aging of the human body and increase human lifespan." Because Li Enping has mastered the technology of freely synthesizing elements, the current Royal Academy of Sciences has overcome difficulties in the past with his help, ushering in an era of unprecedented material abundance for mankind. The immortality potion is naturally one of them. The price of this medicine is probably about the same as gold in the past. However, Li Enping has not yet asked the Royal Academy of Sciences to popularize the medicine. The current mental state of human beings is not enough to control an excessively long lifespan, which will lead to many ethical issues. Li Enping's plan is to completely popularize the immortality potion after the Xianwang is fully rolled out and the spiritual and moral standards of all mankind are greatly improved. Of course, as people close to Li Enping, Anna, Li Qian, Xiao Suesu, and Claudia can of course enjoy this potion in advance. Anna took the white potion in her hand and looked at this elixir that originally only existed in legends. He had to show a surprised expression. But thinking that the other three women must also have this potion, she felt an indescribable sadness in her heart. Just when the sadness started to appear in her heart, a pair of warm arms hugged her from behind. Li Enping appeared behind him as if teleporting and hugged Anna into his arms. When the maids around saw this scene, they all retreated quietly. And Anna felt the breath on the other person's chest, and a blush suddenly appeared on her face. The previous feeling of strangeness and alienation seemed to disappear in this embrace. She struggled weakly for a few times, but did not break away. Finally, she turned around and looked at Li Enping, and found that the other person was also looking at her blankly, which made her face turn red again. I felt a wave of passion rising between the two of them. Anna closed her eyes resignedly. But her constantly fluttering eyelashes could tell that her mood was anything but calm. But after a long time, none of the intimate actions she imagined happened, and she couldn't help but open her eyes strangely. Enping, a strange feeling arose in Anna's heart. Li Enping was distracted? Li Enping seemed to react suddenly. He stepped back and appeared in his original seat again. He said apologetically, "I'm sorry, there was a fire just now in Taean City in Fallen, which distracted me a little." "Well, it's okay," although Li Anping took the initiative to explain. But for some reason, Anna always felt that the other person's distraction just now was not that simple. The erotic atmosphere also disappeared because of Li Anping's retreat, but the sense of distance between Anna and Li Anping had completely disappeared. She tried to find a topic and said, "Yesterday the news mentioned something about the White Land. Is it true?" Yeah, Li Anping nodded. Recently, he has gradually begun to announce the existence of the White Earth to all mankind through various major media channels. But in the news, the White Earth is just an accident related to the Spacegate experiment, and the so-called demons and magic stars have not yet been announced. Announcement of these things too early can easily cause panic. So Li Anping is just spreading some gossip now. Let humans slowly accept this fact. After the overall strength of mankind has developed to a certain level and strong self-confidence has been gained, the news will be truly announced to everyone. "You know about the devil, right?" Li Anping glanced at Anna and said. Yes, Anna nodded, thinking about the information about the demons, and still felt a shocking feeling. "Master Wang Chong told me, it feels like a myth and legend. Do you think we will be able to fight against them in a year's time?" "Don't worry," Li Anping smiled and said calmly, "as long as I am here, no one can destroy the earth." At this moment, the maid on the side came up again, as if she wanted to report something, but Li Anping just shook her head, said nothing, and started to serve and divide the dishes. Xiao Suesu was supposed to be by Li Anping's side, but she seemed to know that Anna was not used to having 3 wives and 4 concubines, so in order to avoid embarrassment, she did not come over. After the dinner, Li Anping personally sent Anna out of the palace. Looking at the other person's leaving figure, his temperament changed, as if a chill was coming out. The original gentle breath had completely disappeared. The whole body flashed and disappeared from the earth, arriving on the land of the magic star. To be continued, please search Ocean Literature. The novels will be better and updated faster. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Man at the top of the food chain. Author, Xionglang Go. Chapter 429. On the Mondo continent, the conflict between the Earth Army and the local army became more and more intense. Just after Saint Laurent and Wiseman were successively occupied, the only magic marshal Issa, because he saw Li Anping's power with his own eyes, led 20 magicians to leave the Fige Empire and surrender to the Earth Army. The remaining 3 empires, including the Fige Empire, finally realized the crisis of the situation, completely stopped the mutual infighting between countries and high-level officials, and truly united together. More than 10 million soldiers, 600 magicians, and even more than 200 dragons came and joined the army against the evil god. Li Anping has been completely described as an unforgivable evil god in all places not occupied by the Earth Army. Starting from the border of Saint Laurent and Wiseman, the battle line that spread over thousands of kilometers seemed to burn the entire Mondo continent. After suffering a great loss in several head-on conflicts, the Magic Coalition immediately changed its combat strategy. It is different from the group combat in the past when ordinary soldiers charged head-on and magicians released magic in the rear. Now, in order to counter the powerful firepower of the Earth Army, the soldiers became cannon fodder to attract firepower, while the special forces composed of magicians took the opportunity to sneak in, execute beheadings, and wantonly destroy various weapons of the Earth Army. Some magicians also tried to study the principles of the weapons of the Earth Army after seizing them, but the serious backwardness in scientific knowledge meant that they could only use some firearms at most. At first, such a guerrilla strategy was successful, but soon the Earth Army concentrated its military strength, and most of the units were loaded on the floating aircraft carrier. The plasma shield opened by the antimatter engine on the aircraft carrier was not something that the magicians could break. After the complete defeat on the front battlefield, the magicians of the coalition could only rely on prophecy magic to continuously attack the weak positions where the floating aircraft carrier was not, but this was difficult to work in front of the rapid reaction forces that fought through the jump gate led by Bizing himself. All the towns occupied by the Earth Army were equipped with warp gates, and with the hundreds of spy satellites orbiting outside the atmosphere of the magic star, these warp gates were like nails, firmly stabilizing the territory occupied by the Earth Army. The wizards might be able to go around to the rear of the Earth Army through the portal, but as long as they launched an attack at an important combat position or even a large town, they would be annihilated by the rapid response forces that came through the warp gate. So after learning about the existence of the warp gate, before the wizards attacked a certain stronghold, the most important task was to let some wizards who were good at transformation spells and charm humans sneak into the opponent's base, waiting for an opportunity to destroy the warp gate and prevent the support of the rapid response force. In this way, countless wizards led the upper wizards and lower wizards to form hundreds of mobile combat teams, all of which went around the rear of the enemy army and began to recapture or destroy the positions occupied by the Earth Army. However, as long as the front battlefield cannot contend with the 6 floating aircraft carriers and Bizing and others, such guerrilla warfare can only delay time. And because the wizards are scattered, they have even less resistance when facing the pursuit team led by Bizing. And as the wizards fighting behind enemy lines are captured and killed one by one, the coalition's disadvantage is getting bigger and bigger. Finally, today, the capitals of the remaining 3 empires have all been breached. The entire Mondo continent has been involved in the war. The 6 floating aircraft carriers gathered together again. 10 kilometers away from them is the first fortress of the Mondo continent, which has 500,000 soldiers stationed and currently has more than 400 wizards. Behind him is the headquarters of the Mondo Continent Mage Guild. Once it is also captured, it will be an unprecedented blow to the entire magic coalition. So even though they knew the strength of the Earth Army, countless wizards still rushed over and vowed to stop the invasion of the evil god. In the sky, hundreds of dragons rushed to the location of the floating aircraft carrier. Their powerful strength and magic provided them with the speed of fighter jets, but what was waiting in front of them were hundreds of interceptors the size of cars. Seeing these little guys flying like bees, which were less than 1/5 of their own size, the dragons showed a trace of vigilance in their eyes. A dragon roar sounded, and the command of the coalition commander was transmitted to the ears of each dragon in the mind connection. Don't worry about those small boxes, pay attention to intercepting the iron bird. The small box naturally refers to the interceptor, and the iron bird is the fighter. Many battles have made all the top leaders of the coalition know that the interceptor can only emit a blue light, which is powerful against the air, but not a big threat to the ground troops. The iron rods, iron balls, etc. released by the iron bird are extremely threatening to construction fortifications and ground troops. The dragon and the torrent of interceptors collided with each other, and countless blue pulse rays hit the dragon's scales. 1 or 2 times might not be a big deal, but after dozens or hundreds of shots, even the most powerful dragon's scales would melt. Almost every second, a dragon wailed and fell to the ground, but more interceptors were also crushed, smashed, or destroyed by the dragon's flames or magic, turning into debris on the ground. But each dragon takes hundreds or even thousands of years to form, while those unmanned interceptors controlled only by computers can be built by any production line on Earth in one day. This is an unequal exchange, but the dragons have no choice. Seeing that the dragons temporarily blocked the opponent's air offensive, the magicians in the fortress immediately began to cast magic according to the plan. As the terrifying magic fluctuations rose, the whole sky began to be illuminated by dark clouds. SpecialAbilities shouted into the communicator, "It is a 10th level destruction magic, thunder glory, at least more than 100 magicians cast together. I am not sure whether the floating aircraft carrier can withstand this kind of magic." Bizing nodded and ordered directly, All plasma shields are turned on at full power. Fan Yuhuang, you come to help defend this magic. At this time, after a long period of practice and absorbing the queen's perception, Fan Yuhuang did not break through to the 6th energy level like Bai Xing, but like Xiaolikan, he had reached the peak of the 5th energy level. Now his 33 caves have reached the 27th cave. With Bai Xing's order, the sky above the 6 floating aircraft carriers has been completely covered by a layer of distorted space. The thickness of just 1 meter has become the end of the world with a depth of more than 140,000 kilometers. I saw a flash of white light in the sky, and the next moment, countless thunders had violated the laws of nature and fell directly like light columns. Thousands of light columns each contain tens of thousands of degrees of high temperature, and the electricity in them is enough to supply a city with electricity for a whole year. If the 6 floating aircraft carriers simply had plasma shields, it would be difficult to ensure that thousands of lightning fell intact. But because of Fan Yuhuang's existence, these lightnings had crossed a full 140,000 kilometers of space within 1 or 2 seconds before they fell. Unlike light, thunder consumes a lot of energy to travel through the atmosphere. After they had traveled a full 140,000 kilometers, most of the lightning pillars had disappeared without a trace, and only a small part of them hit the plasma passport of the floating aircraft carrier, causing a ripple. Looking at the scene in front of them, the Earth Army naturally cheered, while the Magic Coalition was in despair. Fire! With Bai Xing's order, the orbital guns on the floating aircraft carrier, gauze cannons, plasma cannons, laser cannons, and other weapons were all aimed at the direction of the fortress. Just 5 minutes later, the strategic level magic barrier covering the entire fortress was already shaking. But at this moment, several starlight flashed in the sky again. The huge light column, which was tens of meters thick, directly passed through the defense layer laid by Fan Yuhuang, and then hit the plasma shield without any hindrance. It's a laser weapon. From the direction outside the atmosphere. And more. Accompanied by a cry of surprise in the command room, 5 more lasers hit the 5 floating aircraft carriers. The plasma shield activated by the antimatter engine lasted only 10 seconds. It was pierced by the terrible laser one after another. A huge hole was pierced on the hulls of the 6 aircraft carriers, and then in a series of explosions. With billowing smoke, it fell to the ground. At the same time as the floating aircraft carrier was hit, the ground around them was covered by countless light beams, which plowed the earth fiercely. All the animals, trees, rivers, and hills on the ground were vaporized by the infinite high temperature. Seeing the floating aircraft carrier fall to the ground, everyone in the fortress roared. It's the demigod. It's Lord Dionysus. Kill all these evil demons. Without the threat of the floating aircraft carrier, the 500,000 soldiers in the fortress came out in full force. The wizards who had consumed a lot of magic power because of the 10th level magic also used their own means to recover, and then followed. The Earth Army suffered heavy losses due to the crash of the floating aircraft carrier. Most of the ordinary soldiers were directly killed by the fall. As for the capable people, except for those of Bai Xing and Xiaolikan, most of the survivors were injured. Most of the weapon systems of the floating mothership crashed during the crash. Only a few of them were still operational, but because of the location of the crash, only a few guns were aimed at the direction of the fortress. Facing the surging magic army in this state, Bai Xing and others showed a solemn look in their eyes. In this state, even if they can win, it will probably be a miserable victory. It turns out that those natives who succumbed to the force of the Earth Army and were ruled and accepted are also likely to cause unrest again because of this. At this moment, a white light flashed in the sky, and Li Anping's figure had appeared in front of hundreds of thousands of troops in the fortress. When he looked up at the sky, countless data and formulas flashed in his mind. His eyes directly used infrared observation to cross a distance of thousands of kilometers and saw a certain place in outer space. But there is nothing there now. Can we use the space gate to relay high-energy lasers to achieve ultra-long-range strikes with a distance of light years? The location of the main body is unknown. At the same time, Li Enping did not need to turn his head, as all the data within a radius of 10 kilometers had been collected in his brain. Are the attacks near here to prevent the shots from going off target? There is a breath of prophecy magic. Using light speed attacks requires the assistance of prophecy magic. It seems that he hid farther than I thought. Just when Li Enping arrived, hundreds of thousands of troops had already rushed towards the position of the Earth Army like a torrent. The soldiers at the front felt a flash before their eyes, and then they saw Li Enping standing alone in front of them. Without thinking much, these soldiers showed ferocious faces, raised their swords, and slashed at Li Enping fiercely. To be continued, please search Ocean Literature. The novels are better and updated faster. Man at the top of the food chain. Author, Xionglang Guo. Chapter 430. At the moment when the soldier chopped Li Enping's head, Li Enping's entire body surface changed. With the thickness of an atom's diameter, countless atoms were squeezed up by the strong interaction force. 50 atoms were forced into the position where there was only one atom, and they covered Li Enping's whole body in an orderly arrangement, forming a structure similar to Adelman alloy, but both the strength and hardness far exceeded the original Adelman alloy. From the outside, Li Enping looked like he was covered with a layer of silver metal. When the soldier chopped his head with a sword, he felt like he was chopped on a mountain. The strong reaction force directly cracked his tiger's mouth. Then the other soldiers behind him also crashed into Li Enping's position like a wave. But a force field rose directly behind Li Enping, and the force field was like an invisible barrier. The soldiers who rushed like waves directly collided with the force field. That scene was like a piece of tofu hitting a wall. The first row of soldiers were directly hit and their bones were broken, but before they could scream in pain, the soldiers in the back row had already hit them and twisted their bodies into various shapes. Because the force field was transparent, the soldiers in the back had no idea what was happening in front of them, so they could only keep attacking, causing various trampling, collisions, etc. The entire coalition's attack formation was instantly blocked. This was also Li Enping's purpose. He calculated that Dionysus's attack method was to relay space gates one by one, that is, through several space gates opened in advance, the laser passed through these space gates to achieve ultra-long distance and super light speed strikes. In this case, even Li Enping could not accurately find Dionysus's position. While getting this result, he made appropriate responses for three purposes. One is to destroy the army in front of him. The second is to destroy it slowly, giving Dionysus some time to think and see if he can't bear it. You must know that the force in front of you can be said to be the last large-scale resistance force on the entire Mondo continent. Once this force disappears, the entire Mondo continent will no longer have any force that can resist the Earth's military. However, with Dionysus's character, Li Enping is sure that the other party will not come to support him. In his heart, the entire Mondo continent is probably not as important as himself. The third is to experiment with Li Enping's new concept of armament. That is, the force field armor made by changing the strong interaction force and atomic arrangement on his body surface. With the development of human beings in the White Land and the original universe, the situations encountered by human beings in the future will definitely become more and more dangerous, and the enemies will become more and more powerful. Many weapons that are still in use will gradually fail to keep up with the times. So Li Enping designed many new weapons. The force field armor on his body is one of them. In the future, it may replace the nano armor used by the global army in the form of exoskeleton armor. Li Enping, who was surrounded by the crowd, punched out, and his fist had directly penetrated the of dozens of soldiers, leaving rows of blood mist. After punching out, Li Enping stood still. With the increase of strong interaction force, the atomic arrangement on the body surface changed again, and the density between each other increased again. The strength has been increased again, the friction coefficient has also been reduced, and the ability to reflect light has been enhanced. At this moment, the soldiers next to him roared and rushed up again, slashing at Li Anping with swords, but as Li Anping pointed out, the fingers covered by the force field armor were like an indestructible knife. Directly cut off the opponent's weapons, arms, and body, turning the soldiers in front of him into a pile of minced meat. As long as the strong interaction force continues to increase until the electrons are also abandoned, and the armor is purely composed of neutrons and protons. Even the entire planet is just a piece of glass for people wearing this armor, and a sprint can penetrate the entire planet. And in this case, the protons and seeds completely stop moving, just like a large atomic nucleus. Conventional attacks are completely ineffective. But using this kind of armor requires a force field to be maintained all the time. The stronger the armor, the more energy is required. Thinking of this, Li Anping's whole body floated half a meter above the ground, and then with a sprint, his body was like a sharp knife, directly cutting a huge hole in countless soldiers. Compared with Li Anping's current skin, the armor and weapons of those soldiers are just like the difference between tofu and steel. What would happen if a steel plate fell into a bucket of tofu? What would happen if Li Anping ran headfirst into the group of soldiers? Wherever he passed, only blood mist and pieces of flesh were left. Whether it was swords, guns, sticks, or various destructive magic, they could not leave the slightest trace on Li Anping's body. And Li Anping's attack method was also very simple. He just relied on the indestructible force field armor to continuously penetrate the opponent's formation and smash one person after another into pieces. Li Anping was like a silver light, constantly shuttling through the crowd, and like harvesting leeks, he continuously harvested the lives of the indigenous soldiers in large areas. This was the result of him trying to restrain his speed and strength as much as possible and killing slowly. With a bang, a car-sized fireball directly hit Li Anping's position. The terrifying high temperature directly acted on the position within a radius of 10 meters, just like a high explosive bomb, and the explosive airflow generated shook all the soldiers around. But Li Anping walked out of the fire wave as if he had no reaction. The high temperature that was enough to melt the steel plate was now like a breeze, lightly passing through his body, but it could not leave the slightest trace. The magicians in the back row looked at Li Anping, who was constantly killing, and said angrily, "Stop him." Fireballs, ice arrows, lightning, and various attack magics were all attacking Li Anping's position. In order to test the performance of the force field armor, Li Anping did not use any method to offset these attacks. He directly used the force field armor on his skin to resist all the magic released by the opponent. But he was like a reef on the seashore. No matter what kind of magic torrent he faced, let alone damage, he could not even take a step back. Seeing that silver shadow that silently harvested the lives of the allied soldiers like a machine without any attack, all the magicians showed fear. In just a few minutes, the continuous killing had left more than 5,000 corpses on the ground, but Li Anping still did not stop, and kept repeating the same action. He rushed in the crowd, knocking the soldiers to pieces one by one. His actions also caused the magicians in the back row to become more and more crazy, and even completely ignored the safety of the soldiers in front and began to cast various high-level magic. A huge meteorite hit Li Anping's body, and he broke out of the stone directly. The ultra-low temperature of -200 degrees covered Li Anping's body, but it could not penetrate the protection of the force field armor at all. The thunder that fell from the sky directly melted the earth, but it could not leave a trace on Li Anping's skin. Various curses of the necromancy system, rays, and negative energy attacks are the few things that can affect the force field armor. Ordinary physical attacks are completely ineffective. However, other means are needed to defend against radiation, rays, and other types of attacks. However, the defense effect against physical attacks is already qualified. The defense strength of the force field armor can also be adjusted according to the size of the energy output. When the corpses exceeded 50,000 and the blood dyed the entire earth red, the crazy killing finally aroused people's fear, but when some people wanted to escape, they found that an invisible force field had covered the entire battlefield like a cage. Facing the demon that could never be stopped, despair finally spread among the coalition. 2 hours later, until Li Anping crushed the head of the last wizard, Dionysus did not appear. Although it was the same as he expected, Li Anping still showed a sneer at the corner of his mouth. To be continued, please search Ocean Literature. The novel is better and updated faster.